Hello and welcome to Pilato Creations. I was doing some sanding with my random orbital sander a while back, and it was having issues because I had it hooked up to the vacuum because the dust port that comes with it, the little dust bag that comes with it, basically worthless, right? So I had it hooked up to the vacuum, to the shop vac, but it wasn't really doing much good because the filter had gotten so full that it was just not really doing anything for me. So I talked to my local hardwood supplier about it, and they suggested a cyclone separator like this. So I did a little YouTube research and found not only that this can be useful, but also a few different ideas on how to put it together in a way that it's useful in the shop. So let me kind of show you what I came to, and maybe that'll help you figure out what you want to do. The Dustopper Pro, it's a cyclone separator. You can just put it on top of a 5-gallon bucket that you can get at any of the big box stores, right? And the way this works is you hook it up to your shop vac. The shop vac suctions through this, and then down the hose. As the dust comes in, it comes in here, and it drops down into the bucket and doesn't really have much going back into the shop vac. And so very little dust gets into the shop vac, and so that maintains the filter a lot better, and most of the dust gets stuck in this bucket that you can empty periodically as you need to. And I think pretty much I need to. All right, so the plan for building this, I developed mostly from YouTube videos, right? Which is maybe why you're watching this one. And I started off with, obviously, the shop vac. And the shop vac has these little deals down here on the legs that are intended for the attachments that go to the shop vac. Rather than use those for storage on the attachments, I got these little rubber reducers that you can get from Home Depot, Lowe's, whatever, and they tighten down here with the little screw, and then they fit a 1.5-inch pipe. I kind of wish I would have gone with a 2-inch pipe rather than the 1.5, which obviously would have mean that I would have needed a different size reducer. But I went with the 1.5, right? So then the 1.5 comes up here to a cap, and then on top of the cap, I've just got a little piece of plywood. It's maybe 1/2-inch plywood, and I I cut a hole with a jigsaw in the middle so that it would be wide enough for the bucket to go through, but not so wide that it would go all the way through, right? And then I put screws through the plywood into the pipes, or into the caps that are connected to the pipes, right? And so then I just set it all up, and it worked pretty well, except that it wasn't very rigid in spite of the name on the shop vac. And so the solution I came up with for that, rather than just rebuilding the whole thing out of wood or something more rigid, is, hey, I had these pool noodles. And so I got one of these pool noodles and slid it down the middle, and fit it around. And all of a sudden, it became much more rigid and didn't wobble nearly as much. So that made me much happier. The original bucket that I got was actually this Home Depot bucket. And I had heard or seen on other YouTube videos that there tends to be a lot of suction that comes through and collapses these buckets. And so I made this little deal out of wood. You can see I didn't make it into a perfect circle, but basically just kind of cut that so that it would go in there and support the bucket, so that when that suction would come through, it wouldn't collapse. But what I found is that I kind of mismeasured, made it a little smaller than it needed to be, and so it fit down here toward the bottom of the bucket, right? And you can see this crack here. Maybe you can. This crack here is because it didn't have enough support, and so eventually it burst. So you can see on the new one, I've made it out of thicker material. So it's out of 3/4 inch material, whereas this one was out of 1/2 inch material, I think. I've also made it wider than the old one, so that it sits up higher on the bucket rather than down around here, which is where it was on the other one. Now it's closer to up here. And so that it's providing more support up higher where the pressure is probably greater. And then you can also see I've made it thicker, right? So it's not as thin as this material. So I think it should provide a lot better support. Now, one of the other things that I've done on this is that I've gotten these little, they're intended for pools, for pool filters. And it just gives me another layer of filtering so that it doesn't clog the actual filter. All right, so it can be a bit of a chore to empty that with this guy all attached, but it wasn't too terrible. It's not very heavy, but it's a little bit more involved than when it's not connected to everything here. So then putting it all back together. So I can just throw that guy in there and get the dust topper. Get the dust topper, make sure the gasket is still installed. Push him on, clip him on, and we're good, right? Then I need to connect this guy back in. Make sure I've got a good connection there. Good connection there, good connection there. So in conclusion, I've been pretty pleased with the Dustopper Pro and this setup. The rigidity is just fine now, and I'm able to sand and do all sorts of other projects and not have my suction really decrease very much at all. So I'm a big fan, and I will leave links for the Dustopper Pro and the Centec and a whole bunch of other stuff in the description below. All the stuff that we talked about in the video. So if you want to set something up for yourselves, go for it. In the meantime, like, subscribe, and we'll see you on the next video. Take care.